Rebar strengthens concrete. So this is a part of the job that we must do correctly. The Logix product manual has a great deal of valuable information in our engineering section that will help you in making those decisions. Always refer to your local building codes and your local engineer too.
First, always place rebar as specified. When required, horizontal bar should be placed in the wall as each course is installed, always maintaining proper overlap. The overlap is as specified, or 40D, 40 times the diameter of the rebar. If you are using half-inch rebar, the overlap would be 20 inches. This type of non-contact splice in the Logix wall is actually stronger than tying the bars together. Hold the rebar back about 2 inches from window and door openings. Rebar needs to be fully embedded in the concrete, and you'll also want that room for possible adjustments later. You don't need to tie the rebar to the Logix web, just snap it in place. This will create a chase that will keep the vertical bar in place during the pour. Formlock comes in 12.5-foot lengths and is used to make straighter walls. It acts like a horizontal truss and helps the entire wall act like a single unit. It is installed in the second course and the top course. After installing rebar, place Formlock around the entire perimeter of the building. It is designed to fit snugly into the Logix forms. Line up the points of the zigzag pattern with the webs of the Logix forms and overlap about 8 inches. Hold the Formlock back a foot or so from the corners to minimize congestion in these areas. You want to ensure the concrete will flow easily down the wall. Vertical rebar is installed after the ICFs and horizontal bar is in place. This rebar will form a non-contact splice with the rebar already installed at the bottom of the wall. Working from the scaffold, place the vertical rebar into the wall at the specified spacing. Run the rebar inside the chase formed by the horizontal bar and tie it to the web with a small zip tie. Remember to hold back the rebar from the top of the wall to allow placement of a top plate. You'll need to place vertical rebar under the windows before you install the bucks. You'll need additional vertical rebar within 6 inches of each opening. If you are doing multiple floors, cold joints between floors will need to be reinforced using the 40D overlap rule.
Special attention for reinforcing needs to be adhered to when we're dealing with the lintel area. Anytime we have concrete over top of an opening, we have to add additional steel to make certain that it can carry the load just as though it had solid concrete underneath it. Our Logix product manual has a great deal of information available to you, and always consult your local codes and engineering.
The reinforcement steel required in lintels varies greatly, but here are a few basics. First, the sequence is important. Make sure you understand the order before you start. Before placing Logix across the top of an opening, rest the bottom lintel steel directly on top of the buck. Install a course of Logix across the top of the buck. Make sure the bottom lintel steel has enough clearance. It should be 1 1/2 to 2 inches above the buck. Install top lintel steel into the Logix form as per engineering. Hang the bottom lintel steel from the top steel by using stirrups, making sure the bottom steel is 1 1/2 to 2 inches above the buck.
Let's go over the basics of the reinforcement. Horizontal steel needs to be placed in each course as you go up the wall. We prefer that we use a non-contact splice versus a contact splice because it does save time. As we're placing our courses, the horizontal steel should be alternated back and forth from one side to the other to help hold the vertical steel later. Always drop the vertical steel in from the top. It'll save a lot of time. Lintel design should be adhered to. Now we're going to talk about window and door openings.